All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Recovery Scene. I am your host, Leslie. Make sure that you like and subscribe. And tonight, make sure you add in those comments anything you want to ask our guest, Mike. This is Mike Gleam, Recovery Army Mike. He is what would you say? Is it the CEO, founder and CEO?
Founder, owner, yeah.
Founder, owner, etc. of Recovery Army LLC. I'm going to let him tell you all about that. But Mike's new book has just come out, and I've read some of it. I got it yesterday, and it's good. It's not just, hey, here's all the horror stories from my addiction. It's also full of, this is addiction, this is why it's addiction, this is what happened. So it kind of explains the ins and outs as well. You touch on mental health. But anyway, it's called Truth Be Told, the Story of an Addict Turned Advocate. And I love that title because when Mike is a regular. Mike's been
Yeah,
on
yeah.
here
Love
like,
it.
I think this is number 4.
Think four. I think the fourth time,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But the first interview, I called it Addict to Advocate, because that's
Yeah.
exactly what you are. So, Mike, thanks for being on again.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
share your story.
Yeah, I feel like family here. I love it.
Yeah, right. So give us just the Cliff Notes version, because seriously, if you want to know his whole story, you can go back and look for Addict to Advocate, and you can see that there. But, just to move into the book, give us the Cliff Notes version of, your story from growing up to getting addicted and then getting in recovery.
Yeah, sure. So, and yeah, you can go back and check that out. And it's crazy too, from the first time being on, how much has changed even since then too. So, like, it's crazy how much can change in such a short period of time. But thank you for having me on again. I really appreciate it. So yeah, my name is Mike. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and addict. So for me, I'll do the Cliff Notes. We don't have enough time in the night to go through the whole story. So yeah, for me, and like you mentioned, I touch on mental health in the book and what addiction is, and different aspects of it and how it can kind of manifest itself in our lives. And, for me, it started really with mental health, with untreated mental health, which is for a lot of us, I think most of us in recovery, a very, very large majority are dual diagnosed. Like I'm double trouble, I have the addiction and the mental health also. So that's kind of where it started, with this underlying depression, anxiety, not knowing how to treat it, not knowing there was
Right,
resources,
because
not
they say you're either coping, escaping, or self-medicating, or all three.
all three across the board. Yeah. Yeah. And like I didn't know there were resources available. And not only that, I just tried my best to hide it. And really didn't want to talk about it. I thought it was maybe a weak thing to do, to be vulnerable and open up about it. I didn't want to be judged or viewed less than because I had struggles mentally and things
Right.
like that. So the best thing,
Our
my
age, our parents, I
Mhm.
don't want to age myself, but those of us maybe in our 40s, our parents weren't woke when it came to mental health.
No, no, not at all.
I was terrified to go to school, and it's, any doctor now would go, oh, that kid's got anxiety, here's how you can help it. It was like, no, she has a fear of school, force her to go.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And me and my mom actually had a discussion about that the other day. It's just it wasn't spoke about back then. So they really didn't know the approach to take either. Besides a couple 302s and putting me in an institution as a teenager and stuff like that after some self-harm and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that's like where it started. So, I didn't see another outlet until I was introduced to, where I started with weed and alcohol, and immediately found what I thought was a solution.
You're 13, weren't you? You were 13?
Approximately, yeah, approximately about 13. Yeah, yeah. And as soon as I found that, like back in those years too, like a lot of people go out with their friends on the weekends, things like that, and drink, smoke weed, like all those kind of things. And for me, it was never that. Like it was never to go out to have fun or to socialize and party or whatever it may be. It was simply, okay, there's my medications at this place, and I'm going to go there to get outside of myself. You know, and put on a mask and smile and act like everything is okay. But
Right.
I just want to ingest as much as possible of alcohol or drugs, whatever it may
Because you
be.
said in your book, you talk about, and this is a big theme across the board with every single person that I have interviewed, was I felt different. I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. I didn't like myself. We could have a bunch of friends and still just feel absolutely alone and like we weren't fitting in. And you touch on that in your book.
Mhm. Yeah, and really that's like what it was. So like even, and I thought it was a unique problem, you know, back then, like at that age. I thought something's definitely wrong with me. I just didn't know what, so I just found a way to numb it and try to push through it. But yeah, I just felt different, didn't feel connected to anything or anyone, even in my own family. You know, I isolated in my bedroom all the time. I didn't socialize with anyone, you know, I didn't feel a part of. And that's kind of where it led down a darker path, where I thought that I was a part of a specific group of people that were doing the things that I was doing. Or, you know, when I got a little bit older and started selling drugs and stuff like that, then I started feeling the sense of authority and power that came with that. And like, now I finally have something that other people need. And then I felt wanted.
Too.
Yeah, right.
Chaos. Yeah.
Wanted. And that feeling was validating for me, but it was not filling that void. I thought it was, but it just led me down a darker and darker path. So,
Right. And you had said, it, like you said, there was no, for some of us, it's like, okay, we're going out with friends, things like that. A couple years or so later, boom, like we're addicted. It snuck up on us. There was none of this for you. You said it was immediate. Your addiction was immediate. Like you had found the magic elixir,
mhm.
and that was it. And you said you were in prison mentally, physically, and spiritually. And I want to dig deeper into that for people, because a lot of people think being addicted to drugs and alcohol is you want to get high. You're chasing that high, and that's what it's all about. And there's so much more. So as far as in prison mentally, physically, and spiritually, give us more about what that was.
So, you know, and I think some people can say that, you know, they started with a choice multiple times, and then finally something changed in their brain, you know, the prefrontal cortex changed and everything like this, where the choice no longer became a choice. But for me, like, no, it was pretty immediate, and not because I wanted to either. And so that's when I knew it was a problem, even from early on, because I knew I shouldn't have been doing what I was doing. But I didn't see another out. I didn't see another way. And that made me feel literally in prison, not just so later in life came actual prison time, like actual jail time. But at that point, I was mentally in a mental prison for sure. And that's why I don't even like use like drug of choice and things like that, because it's drug of bondage to me. Like, it's truly bondage. And you know, like I've lived in some pretty dangerous areas, and homeless on the streets in some pretty messed up areas like Kensington. And
Right, you lived there for 6 years, didn't you, on the street?
yeah, yeah, I was for quite some years homeless for about 6 straight at least, on the streets, in abandoned houses, parks, benches, under the L. Yeah, for a good 6 years, you know, winter and summers, you know, the whole, you know, went through every homeless shelter there was in the city and surrounding areas. Yeah, that was a dark time.
Yeah, because I mean, it's got to be. Now, this is, I joke when I say this, but I say for silver spoon addicts like myself, because I never did prison time. I was never homeless. That just wasn't my story. But it had to just be a game of survival
Mm.
at that. I mean, strict survival at that point.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that programmed me in such a way. Like, that's what it was. It was survival mode. And not just like surviving to get the next one, but just literally to numb any pain, because there's also a lot of trauma involved. There's, all this other stuff and the underlying mental health issues, and numbing those, because literally I was at the point where, I attempted suicide multiple times. And that thought was a daily reoccurring thought. Like, today's going to be the day. Today's going to be the day. Like, today's going to be the day. And so it literally was just trying my best to get what I needed, however that may be.
Right.
And I'm definitely not proud of things I've done, for sure. I was able to get over these things, but yeah, it was survival mode, really, at its finest. That's what it was. And, I literally felt like, if I didn't care if I woke up in the morning, it was pretty much that simple. Like, I didn't really care until finally, I had my turning point, and, was given another chance, which I truly felt was my absolute last chance, and held on to it, and kind of ran from there. So
Yeah. And you talk about, in truth be told as well, the mental health area. And, if you're watching this and you're a mental health worker, et cetera, we applaud you, because there's not enough. And we don't, it's a slow climb, and it is getting better, but you do touch on how it is not addressed enough. It's not, because I absolutely agree. I think mental health and addiction are 100% connected. Maybe not all the time, but I really think the majority of the time there is, the underlying mental health issue.
yeah, and I think even if someone doesn't have the underlying issue which kind of led to addiction, if they find themselves in an addictive situation, to a substance or alcohol, during that time, they're going to start to accrue some forms of trauma for,
Right.
the pain they cause other people, the pain they cause themselves, some things they might do that they never thought they would do. So that's definitely, it's going to be part, if it wasn't already. But no, it's definitely not addressed enough. And I think especially from an early age, I think honestly, they should have a mandate where, even starting in elementary school, especially middle school, there should definitely be mandatory programming for mental health, and to talk more openly about it. Because even, like, my children go through it, and it kills me to see it. And so yeah, it's definitely under addressed. That's why if I had the chance to speak at high schools, things like that, it means a lot. And I kind of posted something the other day, and we always talk about in rooms of fellowships, the most important person in the room is the newcomer, is like a slogan that we usually go by. But at the same time, I'm thinking about it, I'm like, but what if there weren't as many newcomers? Like, what if we actually reached out and spoke and took our strength, experience, and hope, in hopes that it does not, so it prevents, someone to become a newcomer. Like, I think, they're most important, obviously, like, and people with more time as well. But if we can prevent it, and speak openly about it at schools and at as many, events as possible, and really, and that's part of the purpose of what I do, is to reach people before they have to get to that point. And hopefully, they say a wise person, a smart person learns from their mistakes, and a wise person learns from others' mistakes. So I'm hoping whatever I can share, wherever I can share, people are wise, and kind of open their ears and listen to see where they could potentially end up.
Right. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but when it comes to schools, especially the elementary school, the stigma of mental health to me is ridiculous, because the brain is an organ. If your lungs don't work properly, you use an inhaler. If your pancreas doesn't work properly, you take your medicine for diabetes or whatever. You know what I mean? You do these things for your organs. You get dialysis if your kidneys don't work, etc. So the brain, it doesn't work. We take medicine. Suddenly that's a problem, And in elementary school, I work in an elementary school. We do hearing screenings. The dentist comes. We do vision screenings. We do health screenings. Why are we leaving out the organ of the brain? Why aren't we doing mental health screenings? There's still a stigma there. Like, if there is something wrong with your kid, if your kid my kids have anxiety, my kids are in therapy, like now, because I'm not going to go through what I went through. But it's like, somehow if a child has some kind of mental health issue, it comes back on the parent.
Right.
A lot of the times I think it's parents that need to understand that it's okay
Yeah.
if your
Yeah.
kid has anxiety. It's okay if something happened in your household and maybe they're a little depressed. This doesn't make you, a bad parent.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, and I think, those parents, like, we know as parents, and we've been through it, so it's kind of different. But like, the parents that don't have those kind of issues, it's harder for them to see it unless their children open up about it. But then, exactly, I think it comes down to that being, stigmatized. Is, are they going to be judged as a bad parent? And that's the $1 million question: is like, why aren't we treating it right away? Why aren't we screening for it, more in depth? And like, that's what it baffles me, literally baffles me, because your mind is the most powerful tool there is. Like, it's the most powerful muscle, without a doubt. Like, your thoughts become your reality. So, and it's just so important to treat it at an early age. And it's not being done. And will it ever be how we hope it'll be? Probably not.
Right.
But I'm hoping that in time, we have evolved quite a bit with mental health, and especially with the youth, which is good. So I think, it's unfortunate because, our kids' generation are going to be growing up, and the biggest thing they're going to have in common is either they've lost someone or a family member to an overdose, or that they have a mental health issue, whether treated or untreated. Like, these are going to be I think the things as they get older, it's going to be like their bond, which is insane to me. Like, it's
Right.
insane.
It's
And
almost like a 6 degrees of separation.
exactly,
Everybody's going to know everybody that lost somebody in the end, and you've got trauma bonding. And
exactly. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree. Just switching gears a little bit. You had talked about, again, in your book, how when people think addiction, you just say addiction when you're explaining addiction. You don't say drugs. You don't say
Right.
alcohol specifically. And because I think a lot of people don't realize that, yeah, there are physical addictions. There are also process addictions. There's a gambling addiction. You can have a porn addiction. You can have a sex addiction. You can have a retail, a shopping addiction, a food addiction. I mean, and I'm going to paraphrase him, but Kevin Parker likes to say, everyone has an addiction, mine just happens to be drugs. And
Mhm.
he'll get the response, oh, well, that's just what addicts say to make themselves feel better. And I think as we say, normies
Yeah.
say to make themselves feel better. I'm a nerd, so I like to say muggles. But what they say is vice. And this, I know, it's a vice. It's a vice. Or I think I have a kid's cereal problem. Okay, that's me. But still, I think I have a kid's cereal problem. Or
Yeah.
like, no, you have a sugar addiction.
Right. Right.
We have a sugar addiction. Oh, candy is my downfall. You
Yeah.
can't have
Right.
sugar
Yeah.
addiction. But we're not going to use the word
No,
addiction, because that's the
you
problem.
yeah, you can justify it as much as you want. And I that's the way that I put it in the book purposely. When I introduced the word addiction, I did it as such. So it's addiction. We're surrounded by it everywhere we go. It's not just drugs and alcohol. It's addiction, plain and simple. So and I think
And I think it
it's
comes back to mental health. I do.
yeah,
I think we're filling a void. And you guys, make sure, comment below if you've got questions for Mike, or if you're on the live, etc. And he'll either get them when he checks out the YouTube video, or I'll read them at the end of when we're done on the live. But anyway, yeah, I do, because I think we're filling this void. If I could just have this stuff,
right.
I'd feel better. If I just could be with this person, I'd feel better. But it's if nothing changes in here and in here, that
Yeah, no,
it's not going to be filled.
and it goes back to the biggest, argued question that there is it a choice or addiction? And like, for me, I frankly don't care what people think, if it's a choice or addiction. I will just tell you from firsthand, from my personal experience and many others, and that it's and not just drugs and alcohol, whether it's the gambling, sex, porn addiction, like whatever it may be. But also, okay, so if I make a choice to pick up, and it turns into an addiction, and then someone wants to judge me and say, well, you chose to do that, so that's why you're homeless on the street of Kensington right now. But then again, you can see a diabetic who didn't have the healthiest food choices to eat and smoking cigarettes, turned around and ended up with lung cancer. I'm pretty sure they didn't choose to get the outcome. So yeah, it starts with something, but what it becomes out of our control.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
And
so
we're going to get the comments about how, all
oh yeah,
diabetes isn't, yeah, we know.
yeah, we
What
got
we're saying is there are some things that lifestyle choices contribute
it.
to. It might not
Most
be the rule, but then again, somebody can go out and somebody can use drugs and alcohol and not get addicted.
right.
Same thing. So yeah, but it can happen. It can
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, and it starts with life choices, like the choices that you make. And so yeah, that's the biggest debatable question. I hate getting into that, and I don't even mean to bring it up, but
I know.
that's what it is. And but here's the thing: the good thing about it is finding recovery. Like, so if we do call it a disease, it can be arrested. Like, we can go into remission. It's always there, but we can keep it in remission through a program we work, or therapy, or God, or spirituality, whatever it may be for you. And I support all forms of recovery, no matter what it is. I just want people to live. That's all.
Right.
Too many have died, and too many are going to continue to die. I just want you to live. That's all. But like that's really what it comes down to. So as far as making those choices, like I said, it can be arrested. So just like if there was a diabetic or say cancer from smoking, okay, well, they have chemo, they have insulin, so they can also go into remission and treat these things as long as they manage them and they keep them treated. So the same thing goes for us. Like, the same thing goes for us. So I am going to say that my addiction is a disease, and it's been arrested. I'm in remission, and I keep it treated. And I keep it treated through all the things that I do. Pretty much 6 words sums it all up: is trust God, clean house, and help others. As long as I'm doing these things, I keep my addiction at bay. But I'm only one decision away from going right back out. So it's super important for me to make sure that I'm doing these things continuously on a daily basis. I mean, what happens to a diabetic that doesn't take their insulin? Same thing.
Right, exactly. And going back to the mental health just for a minute, because there was something I forgot about that I really liked. Well, not liked, it's kind of a sad quote, but what I really wanted to address was, you said I needed, and I think the last part of this sentence is really powerful. Because I think this is what some people might also not understand. Because when you see addicts, people love to film. I'm so old. People love to video addicts.
Yeah,
Put them on TikTok and whatever, and everybody gets to make fun of them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a person, and they're probably doing this for this reason. And you said I needed to be as impaired as possible to sit with myself. And I think that last part, just to be able not to deal with other people, not to deal with stress. You weren't going home after a long day of work and getting blasted, just to be alone with Mike.
Yeah.
You had to be out of your mind.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah.
That's pain.
That was, it wasn't a long day of work and come and do it. That was my work. Like, that was what I had to do, because this is a dangerous place. My mind is just the most dangerous place that I can be in. I have to make sure it's a positive space to be in. I spent a lot of time there. I try to make it a decent neighborhood to live in. So, but that's what it was. Like, that literally was at the point for 20 years of my life, honestly, where I had to be as impaired as possible, if not blacked out, because that was the thing. I could not sit with myself. I could not sit with my own thoughts, whether they were suicidal thoughts or hurting others, or, just whatever, just a whole array of different kind of emotions and thoughts. I did not know how to deal with any of them. And so the more impaired I was, the less I felt it, the less I thought about it. Little did I know how deep I was burying all these issues and just piling layers on it and layers on it and layers on it, and not addressing any of it. So when I finally did, after 20 years of doing this, and found recovery and found a process to be able to work through these things, it's pretty damn difficult. Right. I had to unlearn everything.
Stop using. You stop drinking. Yay. That's
Yeah.
it. You're good. You
No.
don't drink anymore.
Right. If only it were that easy, and we always say like it's not going to be easy, but I promise you it'll be worth it. And it's so true. And it's literally probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do. But it's been the most rewarding thing in my life. I was finally able to understand where these things come from, understand where the trauma stem from, understand how to handle them, understand how to talk about it, like find tools and resources to feel better about it and get past it and move on, and know that these things now that happen to me happen for a purpose. They happen for a reason. I learned my biggest lessons that I learned in my life are usually through the highest sense of pain, of during pain is when I learn my best lessons. I'll find myself doing all these things, and then I feel like I'm kind of veering off God's will for me in my course because I'm getting so caught up with all this other stuff. And he'll humble me very quickly. And usually, okay, oh yeah, you want to start taking your will back? Okay, I'm going to put you in a hospital for 2 weeks and you're going to have back surgery. It's like these kind of things happen. Right. And then I'm on a hospital bed, I'm not able to work. I'm on my back, and then it gives me time to reflect on like
ibuprofen this summer.
Yeah. And then I reflect and I'm like, oh wow, that makes complete sense. And that's actually, it's funny because that's when the whole book came about. So this has been a long time coming. It was really a dream come true to be able to do that and be able to publish, because I wasn't able to walk, talk, or write over 7 years ago because of a traumatic brain injury. So being able to be a published author is a huge accomplishment that I wanted to accomplish, not just for myself, but for other people also.
Right.
And
that was drug related.
It was.
It's a hammer, wasn't it?
It was. Yes, it was. It's like, yeah. So now I'm like part Terminator because I have the left side of my skull is all titanium. I was hit with like Thor's hammer. So I think maybe my next book would be a comic book. I don't know.
Right. Now on the and I know this is like, oh yay, pictures, but I love the fact that your book has photos.
Yes, because I thought it was
just it's like, look, this is the actual guy, and this is what happened, and this is what I used to be, and I love the pictures.
Yeah.
What made you want to include? Because a lot of people don't. Most people, like, they write a book, no pictures.
Yeah, I really wanted to write it in a way and portray it as if, so I tried this is why it was so difficult and painful for me. It was extremely emotional to do it. It was spiritually exhausting, because I made sure I tried, I call it truth be told for a reason. Like I tried not to leave anything out, and I didn't pull any shortcuts. Like I really tried to go in as deep as I could, and openly share a lot of things. And it took a toll on me. Like it did. I fell into a depression. All these things happen. But it was important for me to try to convey this message and put it in such a way where when you're reading it, you kind of feel like you're there, and kind of seeing, I wanted to paint a picture with the words that I put on the paper. So I also felt it was super important for me to be able to add the pictures also, so you can see the before and my mug shots and all these things. And then, as we get into the recovery process and stuff like that, just the connections I've made, and just, nothing but smiles and just good times and memories that I've been able to make with just some of the most genuine, authentic, loving people that I've ever met in my life, that are in my life today. And it's like my circle is absolutely amazing. I love everybody in it. So I thought it was really important to do that. So that was my goal, to not only write my story in a way where it could be inspirational to someone, of course, to overcome the odds, be an underdog and fight these demons and the mental health and the addiction and trauma and, depression, anxiety, like all these things, and be able to overcome this stuff. But also I really wanted to make sure it was educational and informative too. I didn't want to write this just for people in recovery or just for someone that's struggling with addiction. I want parents to be able to read it. I want, the youth to be able to read it. And they can become a little more educated if they're not, super familiar, or don't have much information about addiction and mental health and the importance of it and talking about it, things like that. So I really wanted to reach, and whether you're a believer or non-believer, also with faith, like I want to make it so everybody can relate in some sort of way or take something away from it. So
Right.
that was the goal. I feel like I accomplished that.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Because it's funny that you say that, because that's perfectly segues into what I was going to say, as far as it's not just, an addict telling another war story, about what they went through and what happened, which is important. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, these are good stories that I do. This is what I do, but it's very clear, anybody reading this book is going to take you seriously, because it's very clear you are educated on this subject. It's very clear, what you're talking about,
Yeah.
and that comes through in the book, and I think that's a really important component as well.
Yeah. And, I add the stories, and if you want to call them war stories, whatever you want to call them. But, even when I touched on something, I tried to add something in the end of what I learned from it, what I got from it, how I got past it, what changed after that, or how maybe it made me worse or better, or whatever it may have been. But, it wasn't the goal of really, it's important for me to have been able to express the situations I went through, just so anybody, if they can relate or not, just to see the depths that it takes us and everything. But like I said, to spread awareness too. So yeah, I'm not big on war stories, but I think it's an important part to see the bottoms that, that I hit during my life, at least. But also, like I said, offer a piece of encouragement and, ways out.
Right. Now, going to a lighter note, as we get closer to wrapping up and everything, what I really like as well is you have had some wonderfully strong women in your life. Like, you talk about your grandmother and what she meant to you.
I didn't know where you were going with that, because because if you read the book, you'll see, and I'm like, okay,
remember, guys, I know his story.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking about grandma, mom, and of course Jen, your fiance.
Yes.
But yeah, tell me about the women, and as far as your mom, and you talked about how you reconnected with an aunt at one point, and I noticed it's women in your family, and like Jen in your life, that are a real big foundation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was absolutely my downfall for quite a while, for sure. I'm willing to admit that. That was like,
I wasn't even going there.
No, I know. I'm just
about grandma.
I know. I'm just putting it out there though, because it's crazy, because during the addiction and those times, codependency is addiction of its own, probably the biggest addiction, I think, than anything else, just as a human condition, just being codependent on other people, which is something that I had to deal with also, that I didn't realize I had. But yeah, finding, recovery was, in my early years, my grandmother, my great grandmother were instrumental in my upbringing. And they passed away when I was at a younger age, in my teens, in my home, when I was present. And, that really,
that's a vulnerable time.
Yeah, so that kind of set things off, a lot more. So, and my mom and dad were there. I grew up in a good household. There's definitely, I can't put blame anywhere. I can't point blame anywhere except right here. That's it. Like, I'm responsible for everything, good or bad. So, and the thing is though, like, back then there was no. See, I had a sister in my life also who, well, she's still in my life, my older sister, but she's, grew up as the opposite of me. She was, blonde hair, blue eyes, and like completely different in every way, heavily involved in youth group, and never got in trouble. And then here comes me. And I'm like, that's what really also, made me feel like the black sheep of the family too. And I didn't fit in, because as far back as I can go in my family tree, I don't see anyone with any addiction issues or alcoholism issues. There's some mental health components, but nothing as far as, I kind of broke the mold.
Right. So, and I didn't mean to leave dad out, by the way. It's just, I know that it's mom that's still around and it is a big part of your life. So I'm sorry, Dad.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. But yeah, they were instrumental in my upbringing, and and then when I was out there, so like, my family and my mother especially told me at an early age, if you go to jail, if you get locked up, like, I'm not bailing you out. Like, she knew a majority. She knows more now that we've talked about things over the past, year or two, whatever, but more in depth. And especially since I'm writing this book and everything, I'm making sure I let her know, I'm putting everything out there. So like, I don't want you to have any kind of, be opinionated in a certain way, but she loved it. She absolutely loved it, which is great.
Oh, good.
But like they weren't,
Did you
my
give her a
sister was
signed copy at least?
yeah, of course, absolutely. So, with my sister being that way, like honestly, I feel like part of it, they didn't know what to do, like they didn't know what resources to use. I wasn't opening up about it. I was hiding most of it. So like, what they knew was like 10 to 20% of what was really happening, and it was a lot deeper than that.
Right.
So
and again, people at our age there weren't back then a lot, and not even as many as there are now, and it's still lacking.
yeah,
It was like, oh, your kid's a junkie. Sorry, that sucks.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
kind of it.
Yeah, pretty much. Right. So like, so we disconnected for a long time, and she held firm to that boundary. I'll give her that. Anytime I got locked up, there were no phone calls, there were no commissary, money on my books, there were no letters. And that's not just with my family, my fair weather friends and like all these people. No one was there. No one. It was just me. That's it. I mean, literally over a decade, like just it was just me. Like, and it really goes to show you who is really in your corner and who really isn't, who just wants you when you have something that they need. I learned quickly. But I still resorted back to hanging out with the same people, because that's the life that I knew. But luckily, after several years, and had actually a couple years under my belt in recovery, was able to reconnect with my family. And our relationship was stronger than ever now. And it's just amazing how the things have changed. And I just bought a house out in Delaware. We have kind of like an in-law quarters here for my mother and my father. My father's retired. My mother is like semi-retired. So it's just amazing how things kind of turn around. So like, they trust me, like they're in my corner. They're like my number one fans with everything I do. And just to hear them say that they're proud of me is, that makes so much of it worth it. And then, meeting Jen and, I learned a lot from my divorce during recovery too. I went through a divorce and because in typical Mike fashion, I jumped into an early relationship right after having a brain injury, within that first year and didn't even know who the hell I was. And, so I finally started learning during that marriage too, like who I really was. And I'm like, wow, this is probably not where I should be. I'm not growing into who I need to be. Who I feel like, God is molding me to be, and had to remove myself, and it was lessons learned. And I was blessed with a child, though, with, my 4-year-old who just actually turned 5 today. Today's his birthday. So happy birthday, Tucker. Today's his 5th birthday. Yes. So, so blessings came out of it, but lessons as well. Stayed clean during it. So that's always a plus. And, then I was able to, reconnect. I think it was literally divine intervention, the way that Jen and I reconnected. I'd known her since she was 14 years old. And since we were teenagers, we grew up one block away. She went through a marriage. I went through a marriage and, reconnected. She reached out to me when a family member of hers needed some assistance getting into treatment. I was working inpatient at the time and had him in same day. Think he's coming up on a couple of years now, which is, absolutely amazing. So, we just never stopped talking since then. And it almost just feels like, when we got back together that first night, we spent some time together. We just put everything out on the table, like what happened the past 20 years of both of our lives. And wow. It was so comfortable. Like I never shared some of those things I said to maybe one other person. And it was that first night that I just spilled everything, and we just never stopped talking. So now we're engaged to get married. And we got a big happy family here, so things are good. Truly blessed.
No, that's awesome. And it really is a good book. I definitely recommend it. It'll be very soon out on the Sober Curator Quit Lit review. I'll get it out there. And then tell everybody how. I'm going to ask you to do a few things. So first, tell everybody how they can get a copy of your book. I know it's available on Amazon.
Yes. So, okay. So it is on Amazon. Also, I have the direct link on my social platforms, so you can find on
Yes, tell
Recovery.
everybody where they can find you everywhere.
Yeah. So you can find me. You can find me, Recovery Mike on TikTok, and in my bio, there's a link right there. Not just for the book link, but also the connection to all my other platforms, and to stay connected with me through email and stuff like that too. To offer any resources for anybody that needs any assistance or anything like that, or to just connect. And also on Facebook and Instagram at official Recovery Mike. You can find it there, and there's direct links there on those pages. So it is on Amazon. The name of the book is Truth Be Told, the story of an addict turned advocate. Little did I know when I wrote it how many books were titled Truth Be Told. And then I get it published, and I'm like, holy crap, there's like 80 books named Truth Be Told in
Just
different.
make sure you put Mike Gleam at the end of it.
even then it's tough because people are having trouble finding it because it just published, so it's like way in the back pages. So as long as you search Truth Be Told, the story of an addict turned advocate, and make sure you hit filter and make sure it's on books. So it's on Amazon Books, so make sure you filter it to books and it'll pop right up. So there's paperback, there's hardcover also available. There should be the Kindle version probably this week or next week, and I'm going to work on the audio book and actually actually narrate the book myself into an audio book. Yeah. So, and then I have another book plan that I'm working on, because this is volume 1. So this is volume 1. There's going to be a volume 2 probably next year. But this work, I'm working on something else also. Actually a book of poems, believe it or not,
Cool.
that I'm hoping to do this year. Yeah. So
that's really cool. And okay, one last thing, we can't wrap it up without you telling everybody about Recovery Army Outreach.
Yes. So for those of you that don't know, yes, I'm a founder, and Jen is co-founder of Recovery Army Outreach Incorporated. So we are a charitable nonprofit organization. We do most of our work in Kensington, Philadelphia. Started a little over a year ago, and we went down and decided to be of service one day, and not as an organization, just to be in service and go down and help the people that I can personally relate to where I've been on the street. And
how do you do that? How do you help them?
So
I guess, what do you do?
So we started the first time we put together hot meals, bagged lunches, did like a clothing donation. We had tons of clothing. We bagged up tons of toiletries, cosmetics, everything like that for men and women, separate bags and stuff like that for different needs that they have. But the biggest thing we tried to do was also like offer resources, actually sit down, get to know people. I know when I was out there and I was homeless on the street, there would be some churches that would come down, stuff like that. And, maybe give me a meal and pray with me, and then they'd kind of be on their way. So I kind of wanted to add anyone that's willing. I can't go down with an unrealistic expectation to grab somebody by the hand and say, let's go to treatment. It just doesn't work that way. I wish it did. So, offer resources. And usually every time we went down, whether it be that day or within a couple of days, I would hand my cards out and stuff like that. And I'd get a response, and we can get people, and we got some people in treatment, which is great. So we did that for like 2 months. After the second time, it was just so fulfilling. It really was fulfilling. So, spiritually, especially. And so we decided, I said, I think we should do this, on a more professional level. And I'm extremely impulsive. Jen can definitely vouch for that. Yeah, me? Nah, never. Yeah. So I started filing paperwork like that day. The fastest way I could possibly find to do it, to become an organization. We did it quickly. So now we do it, as a charitable nonprofit. You can go to recoveryarmyoutreach.com. And that's our site there. You can subscribe on there also to help out in any way possible. $5, $10, whatever that you can do. Monthly helps our mission. And there's some different things you can see on there as well. Just, regarding addiction in Kensington.
I totally forgot to wear my shirt.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. I don't even have mine on. That's all right.
I got a lot of stuff.
But yeah, I mean, that's the goal. And we haven't, So the hardest part for me was, and here's the thing, it's not an easy thing to do. Anyone that doesn't know about Kensington, go to YouTube and look up Kensington, and you'll see some not so great videos. And I cringe when I watch most of them because I hate when people record and put people's faces all over it and stuff like that. That's somebody's mother, somebody's father, somebody's brother,
Right.
somebody's uncle, somebody's aunt, and I can't stand that. So we try not to do that if we put any content out in pictures, just kind of the area and how desolated it is, and how how it's just so high in poverty and garbage, and I mean, you name it. But the hard part for me really was, going back to the place that broke me, where I literally, lost my life on a couple of different occasions. And the hard part for me was leaving. Like, I can go down and I feel great doing these things and helping others and connecting with people and helping with necessities that they have. But when I leave, I have survivor's guilt,
Right.
because I know when I'm leaving in that car, I'm going home. And I
Safe,
was down there
nice
for,
and dry.
yeah, I usually don't even drive home. Like, Jen will drive home. I'll sit in the passenger seat, and it takes me a while. It usually takes me like a day to really kind of get back to where I need to be. Like, spiritually, it's just exhausting. And, I have guilt because I get to go home, and, these people don't. And I know what that's like. And, it hurts. But, that's kind of why we do it. So I make sure we have a lot of volunteers that come with us. We haven't gone down in a couple months because of COVID and family issues and trying to finish the book and doing all these things. Also, so we're hoping to go down this month would be the goal for our next one. But we have a group of amazing volunteers that are just the usual suspects that always come with us: Sal, Christina, Renee, a bunch of just incredible people. But the thing is, they have to be extremely spiritually fit to be able to do what we do there. Because the last thing I want to see happen is bring somebody down, say, in early recovery, has never been down there even, or don't know anything about it. I mean, it's going to be a shock. And the last thing I want to do is leave and they're not coming back with us. So, it's a process, and, but we're a team, and, we make a difference as best as we can at just planting seeds. Really is the goal. Just showing people there is hope and we get it. And, if you're looking for a way out, hopefully we can help you find one.
That's awesome. I mean, this just everything that you're doing is just fantastic. I mean, just congratulations on the book. Congratulations on the engagement. I mean, Recovery Army Outreach is doing well. I mean, it's just, there's nowhere to go but up, up and up and up. So we will definitely be looking for volume 2, because I'm going to finish volume 1 and I'm going to want volume 2. And, make sure when you hit Amazon, when you hit Amazon and you buy the book, make sure you leave a review, because
Please.
that helps with sales and everything. So especially if you're a verified purchase, and then thank you again for being willing to come on here and, just tell us about your book and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I would love to come back again. This is, like a 5th appearance. I love coming on. But I do want to say, just to everybody, and we talked about like how good things seem to be for me right now. Listen, my life's not perfect. Like, things are looking up, things are going good because I feel like I'm doing what I need to be doing. I'm not, taking my will, I'm following his will for me, and just taking it a day at a time, and really just staying dedicated, and really committed to what I really want to do and what I want to achieve, and those that I want to help. But with that being said, like, my life is not perfect. So I don't want you guys to get this, this construed thought of, things are great in his life. Like, that's not the case. You know what I mean? Like, my life sucks sometimes. I go through shit. Like, I go through shit. And like, when it happens heavy, like, so I'm just like everybody else. We all go through struggles, just finding a way of being able to deal with them. And just so everybody does know also, so I am going to take a vast majority of the proceeds from the book, and invest that back into my community also. So the goal is to take any proceeds from there, and start to work on opening some sober living homes for men and women. So that's the goal with that book, and then future books as well. So to be able to continuously, I feel like that's where I'm being led. So continuously give back, and Yeah, and we'll see what God has in store. So
Well, Judy, I'm going to spell your last name because I'll kill it. Colombe says she's heading to Amazon right after.
thank you, Judy.
Thanks,
Yes.
Judy.
Hi, Judy.
That's really awesome. That's awesome. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of The Recovery Scene. I'm just a mom with a podcast. So make sure that you like and subscribe. And remember, addiction isn't pretty, but recovery is beautiful. And we'll see you next time.